It started like any other weekend. My son, who's been in a wheelchair since he was 7, wanted to take a quiet ride around the neighborhood, something that helps calm him down after a long week. We live in a peaceful area, or at least, I thought we did. He wasn't bothering anyone. He wasn't loud. Just enjoying the breeze and the sun on his face. But apparently, that was enough for our local HOA Karen to lose her mind. She came storming out of her house, phone in hand, yelling that my son was trespassing on the private community path. Her voice got louder with each step, and before I could even process what was happening, she was already on the phone with the cops, talking about unauthorized individuals and suspicious activity. Mind you, this is a 13-year-old boy in a wheelchair. My son froze. He didn't understand why this stranger was so angry. Honestly, neither did I. But here's the part she didn't know. I am the sheriff of this county. The moment the responding officers showed up and saw me standing there, in uniform, her face changed. Fast. What happened next took a turn she never saw coming. And let's just say, it didn't go the way she planned. But that's where this story really begins. Because what should have been a quiet day turned into something much bigger. And it says a lot about who we are as a community. You won't believe what happened next. I hadn't planned on wearing my uniform that day. It was supposed to be my day off, just spending time with my son. But I had just finished a quick stop at the station and hadn't changed yet. So when the patrol car rolled up and the officers stepped out, they recognized me instantly. I saw the confusion on their faces shift to concern, then something close to embarrassment once they figured out what was going on. But the woman, she still didn't get it. She was too busy pointing and ranting about rules, acting like she ran the whole neighborhood just because she's on the HOA board. What bothered me most wasn't the false accusation. It was the way she looked at my son, like he was less than, like he didn't belong. He hadn't said a word, just sat there with wide eyes, trying to understand why someone would hate him for doing nothing wrong. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a path or property lines. It was something deeper, about control, about judgment, and maybe even something uglier underneath. Neighbors started peeking through windows. A couple came out to see what the commotion was. One of them whispered, "She's done this before," and suddenly it clicked. This wasn't the first time she used her position to push people around. And maybe, just maybe, this was finally going to be the time someone stood up to her. But the story was far from over, because what happened next caught everyone off guard. The officers pulled me aside, clearly uncomfortable. They asked quietly, "What exactly happened here, Sheriff?" I explained everything, how my son was simply riding along the walking path we've used 100 times. No laws were broken, no complaints from real neighbors, just her. They nodded but didn't say much. I could tell they were treading carefully. After all, this wasn't just about enforcing the law. It was about dealing with someone who's made herself a nuisance, but hides behind HOA rules like they're gospel. Meanwhile, Karen, I still don't know her real name, and at this point, it barely matters, stood there, arms crossed, demanding citations and threatening to escalate things with the HOA board. Her voice carried. Her words were sharp. She didn't care that she was wrong. She just wanted to be right. My son flinched with every word. He's not used to this kind of hate. Honestly, neither am I. Then something unexpected happened. One of the neighbors, an older man named Mr. Delgado, stepped forward. He told the officers that this woman had harassed his granddaughter last month for playing too loudly in their own yard. Another neighbor chimed in, saying she'd been warned about leaving too many decorations up past the holidays. Story after story started pouring out. It was like a dam breaking. But just as it felt like the tide might turn, she pulled out her phone again, not to call the cops this time, but to call the HOA president. And what he said when he arrived changed everything. About 10 minutes later, a silver SUV pulled up fast and parked slightly crooked at the curb. Out stepped the HOA president, Mr. Talbot. Suit jacket, clipboard in hand, and a look that said he already had his mind made up. He barely glanced at my son, didn't greet the officers, just walked straight over to Karen and started nodding along as she whispered something in his ear. I could feel my jaw tighten. It was clear they knew each other well. Talbot turned to me and said, "Sheriff or not, your son has no right to use private community property without permission." His tone was cold. My son shrank back a little in his chair. I stepped in front of him without thinking. I asked calmly if he'd read the state's accessibility laws lately. He ignored the question and instead rattled off something about bylaws, unauthorized access, and safety concerns. But it wasn't about safety. It never was. It was about control. The officers stayed silent. The neighbors were watching closely now. Phones out, some filming, others whispering. One woman even started crying quietly. This wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was turning into something much bigger than any of us expected. A line was being drawn right in the middle of our street. Then Mr. Talbot said something that stopped everyone cold. "If you don't remove him from the property, we'll start legal action." You could feel the air shift. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the birds seemed to go quiet. Because what happened next, no one could have seen coming. I stared at Mr. Talbot, trying to process what I just heard. Legal action against a disabled child. For rolling along a public sidewalk that just so happened to run through our community. I was about to respond when my son's voice broke through the tension. Soft but clear, he asked, "Am I in trouble, Dad?" And for a moment, everything else faded. Before I could answer him, another voice rang out from across the street. "That sidewalk's on city land, not HOA property." Everyone turned. It was Ms. Green, a retired city planner who'd lived here longer than most of us. She was holding a folder, waving it in the air. "I helped design this layout 20 years ago. That path, it's not private, it's public access." Talbot froze. Karen blinked, clearly caught off guard. Ms. Green crossed the street, opened the folder, and pulled out a map with stamped city approvals. I knew right then, whatever they were trying to pull was about to unravel. But just as things seemed to shift in our favor, another surprise hit. One of the officers stepped forward, gently pulling me aside. He lowered his voice and said, "Sheriff, there's something you should know. This isn't just about your son." He handed me a copy of a complaint filed weeks earlier. Anonymous. But it didn't just target my son. It listed several families, names, accusations. Almost like someone was building a case to push certain people out of the neighborhood altogether. That's when I realized we weren't just dealing with a rude neighbor anymore. This was part of something much bigger and way darker. My eyes scanned the complaint in my hand. It wasn't just my family being targeted. There were 5 other names on the list. 2 were families with young kids. One had a teenage boy on the autism spectrum, and another had just moved in a month ago. All of them had one thing in common. They didn't fit into the picture-perfect version of the neighborhood Karen and Talbot seemed to think they were protecting. It was coordinated, quiet, hidden behind HOA policy and technical wording, but clear as day once you saw it laid out. I walked back toward the group, holding the paper up. "This isn't about a sidewalk," I said. "This is about trying to push people out who don't fit your idea of acceptable." Karen scoffed. Talbot tried to speak, but the crowd was already reacting. Ms. Green stepped forward again, louder this time, calling it what it was, discrimination masked as enforcement. Then, the real twist. One of the younger officers pulled out his phone and showed me something, an internal email that had been circulating at that HOA office. It was forwarded anonymously. In it, Talbot had laid out a neighborhood improvement plan, listing names and addresses to monitor for compliance. My name was on it. So were the others. That was enough. I told the officers to log everything and submit it to the city. An investigation would follow, and as of that moment, Talbot and Karen were asked to step down by the very neighbors they tried to control.